Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah. So you're welcome. Prof is not around, so he has asked that we should discuss the material. So I'll be sharing my screen, and we are also recording. Please, if you can see my screen, let me know. Can you see my screen, please?
You can see your screen, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll go to our classroom, and then we want to see how far we have gone so that we can begin to, prepare for exams and stuff like that. So there's the course outline here. So let's look at the course outline together, see how much material we have covered, and then focus on today's material. So there are 10 sections. So we've done sections 1 to 5. Today we should be looking at population growth, projection of labor force and manpower. At the end of the day, we'll be left with Nigeria population census, statistics related to industries, foreign trade and balance of payment, cost of living, inflation and their measurement, and education and social statistics. One thing you have to agree with me is that there is a lot to learn in this class. The topics are very diverse. Today, we will attempt to cover the content. There will be time for discussions and then also time to do questions and answers. So today's topic is population growth, projection of labor force and manpower. Let's look at the objectives of today's session. We are to explore the dynamics of population growth. Secondly, look at the methods for projecting the labor force and manpower. And lastly, we'll look at the implication of these projections on national planning and economic development. It is anticipated that at the end of this session, these discussions, we would have been able to achieve the following. First, understand the factors influencing population growth, and also what constitutes the labor force. Secondly, you should be able to look at the complexity of projecting labor force needs. And you will also agree that that's a very trending issue in Nigeria right now. And that seemed to be something that might tear the nation apart. Because whereas government is proposing, something in the region of 48,000 and 54,000 as minimum wage, Labour is asking for a minimum wage of 615,000 naira per month. This will also be part of our discussions as we continue because, it's always better to look at contemporary issues. All right. So the other thing that we'll be looking at is we'll be identifying the challenges in forecasting and also looking at approaches to mitigate the challenges in policy formulation. For instance, back to the same issue that I mentioned just now, there are a lot of challenges, and that will be a very robust conversation. So all of our outcomes will be covered in 5 parts, as you can see. The first part will be to understand population growth. If I may ask, what is the population of Nigeria as at today? Let me go to the class and see if we have people that have joined us. Yes. Osareme Omokere. How are you?
Good afternoon, sir. Fine, sir. Fine,
So,
sir. Good afternoon, sir.
what is the population of Nigeria at the moment?
The population of Nigeria at the moment is going to about 280 million. Going to about 180 million. Yeah, that's at not more. If it's not more.
I don't understand. Is it that you don't know the population of Nigeria?
Last time I checked, it's belong we did what they call a census, but officially,
yeah,
you should be going to that amount I just said.
Your projections. Oluwaseun Bolanle. Oluwaseun. Oluwaseun is not here. Joseph, good afternoon. How are you? Okay. Joseph is not also here. That's good. Adigu Joshua.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank God you are here. Osareme said that the population of Nigeria is around 180 million or something like that. What's your response to that?
Actually, the last census that was conducted 2006 or so, you cannot use that to judge, but I guess I supported what he has said. But the thing is not stable since another census ought to be conducted as at now.
I don't understand what you are saying. Are you saying that you agree with him or you disagree with him?
I agree with him, sir.
So
although we can't use that to judge now.
Okay, so how bad is it if you don't know the population of your country? Is it really bad? Talk to
Very
me.
bad, sir. Very bad, sir. Because if you
how bad is it?
Government will not know, like provision of social amenities now to maybe to the rural area now. They will not have the estimate of those people staying at a particular area. That's part of the reason, sir.
So what you are saying is it will make economic planning very difficult, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry, man. I can see your hand up. You want to say something?
Yes, sir. Even the government doesn't know the actual population of Nigeria. They are still projecting. Even the international yes, actually, they are still projecting. Last time, the president Muhammad Buhari wanted to organize census. Maybe it was due to the election. They wanted. I was even part of the census official. We went to several training. So presently,
you went for training?
Yes. I was part of the facilitators. So right now, the government does not know the population of Nigeria. We are still projecting. That's why I said that it should be around 180 million like that.
So, Osareme, what you are saying is, even you that partook in the pre-census activity, you don't even know the projection, and even the former president doesn't even know that everybody is just projecting. So our situation is very bad, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so yes, I wanted just to engage us on that to be sure that we know that it's a serious matter. I agree with you totally that we are not even sure of, our size. So imagine you have a family and you earn X amount of naira in a month, and you don't know how many people you are going to cater for. That's really bad. So we cannot even tell if our population is actually growing. We are only working on estimates. So it means it calls for concern. But let's just go on. I wish Joseph was here. I wish Bolanle was here so that it can be more engaging, but we will still engage further. So in part one, we'll look at the basic concepts and the determinants of population growth. We'll look at, after defining it, we'll look at what makes population to actually grow or otherwise. And then we'll look at the demographic transition theory. We'll mention the stages. The second thing that we'll be doing under understanding population growth is to look at the global and regional trend. We'll look at, current trend, look at nations where they have figures that are authentic. And then we look at the differences between developing countries and developed countries regarding population growth and factors that, cause the difference in those regions. Part 2 will be projection into the labor force. Okay, so after looking at the population and the growth of population of regions, we want to look at what are the ways that we can use to estimate the labor force so that we can plan ahead for those who are able to increase our revenue and our GDP. So there we'll be looking at the concept of labor force. We'll define it. Okay, we'll look at the different categories of the labor force. Moving forward, we'll look at methods of projection. First, we look at introduction to the basic techniques, and then we now look at case studies. If we can go that far, that would be nice. If it's possible for us to go beyond that, that would be better. So look at the way the lecture notes has been arranged, very, very well arranged. First, you'll be looking at how population grows. Then you look at the labor force, and then you now look at how to plan, manpower planning and economic development. You won't have that problem that labor has with the federal government. It is shameful that some states are even owing their workers, despite the fact that they are supposed to pay them a minimum wage of 30,000 per month. That's some of the conversations that will make our discussions very lively. But it's important for me to digress a bit, to go online and show us Worldometer. Okay? So it's a website that you can visit to monitor activities, even real time. So at the moment, real time data, the world population is 8.11 billion. And if you can see my screen, you will see that this number is actually, looks as if it is increasing. Yes, it's increasing, but it's not just increasing, it's increasing and decreasing. But because the birth this year is moving faster than the death this year, that is why this guy is going to be on the increase. Of course, as there are more births, the current population, world population, is expected to increase. The idea is that this increase as a result of more births and fewer deaths this year. But beyond the world population, there's also the net population growth this year, 28 million. Okay, there's even the net population growth today, almost 200,000. And that's not the only thing that you can find on this website. You can scroll down and then you can look at healthcare expenditure. Okay, look at the way healthcare expenditure is moving rapidly to the tune of $10 billion. Public education, all of this is today. This is just today. Of course, Nigeria has been aggregated into this. So even though ours might be very slow, but the fact is that it's actually changing. Yeah, did somebody join the class or did somebody raise hands? I want to spend some time on this portion. Osareme, please speak to us.
Yes, sir. Looking at the meter, the way they are just running, increasing, decreasing. I don't want to ask how factual is these figures? Because I keep on thinking, or it's baffling me that between how many minutes, seconds, I use that they are giving birth like that around the world. So like that. So it's just beyond my distance. I don't want to ask more explanation to that. So
Okay, so let's try to explain. If there's somebody who can respond. Good. But let me offer my own opinion. There are close to about approximately 200 countries in the world, and it is expected that each of those countries should have a database. So if you take Nigeria as an example, let's assume that our database is with the NPC, okay, maybe health will be Ministry of Health or whatever, but let's just take whether NBS or whatever, one of those two organizations should be in charge of recording birth rates and deaths. So what it means is that when a death happens in, say, Zamfara State, another happens in Kogi State, another happens in, maybe a boy, wherever deaths are happening, they are supposed to be recorded, and then they're supposed to be fed to the database. So as those things are fed into the database in one remote village, maybe in Osun State, that data that is recorded goes straight to populate this whole huge, center. I don't know if I'm making sense. So just imagine that that's what's happening everywhere, in Tunisia, in Australia, in maybe Japan, all over the world. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So that's
Clear,
the sense there. Where it become clearer is when you look at cars produced this year. You will see that the pace is rather slower. Okay. If I come down a bit and we look at bicycles produced this year, you will see that even though it's fast, I don't know how many are produced in Nigeria, but the truth is, look at computers produced this year. This very shameful now, what I'm about to show you. New books, titles published this year. Look at the pace. This, I expect, should have been more without social media. So when we now have access to the whole internet, then the rate at which books are going to be produced will be actually small. Look at newspapers circulated, TV sets sold, cell phones sold. My money spent on video games today, $195 billion. The thing goes on. Internet users in the world today. This is not internet users at the moment. This is the increase in the number of internet users. That is, people are signing up, maybe joining new mails, joining new platforms, and that's what you have. That's 6 billion. So it means that if we are 8 billion plus, nearly everybody is an internet user. Emails sent today, 182 billion. Carbon dioxide emission this year in terms of tons, 14 billion, and so on. So it just goes on and on. But this will impress you. Solar energy striking the earth, 1 trillion. Oil left in barrels, 1 trillion. Days to the end of oil in the earth, 14,266 days, approximately 39 years. And Nigeria is still, sitting on oil. That's all we know. Yet we import that same oil. So it just continues. Cigarettes smoked today. Money spent on illegal drugs. So, my dears, it's a beautiful place to visit so that you can, be up to date with what's happening in the world. So we continue. So manpower planning and economic development. We'll look at manpower planning, we'll define it, and discuss the role of education and vocational training in shaping the workforce. I particularly like this subtopic. The idea is that one would think that is the role of education, as it were, formal schooling that is shaping the workforce. But no, it's also vocational training. So don't think it's unusual when you have to learn a soft skill or maybe a hard skill or whatever training, maybe hand work or vocational training to support your formal education. It's a global trend and it's beautiful. So we are doing the right things when we encourage our children to learn sewing, barbing, plumbing, and stuff like that. Then we'll look at sectoral demands and skill gap analysis. So there is demand, that's what the work environment expects to get, but there's also what individuals who are potential employees have. So there's a gap. People say there are no jobs, but indeed there are, but people are not skilled enough to occupy those positions. So there is the skill gap. You know, people are not employable. You won't want to have a business and employ somebody who is not going to add value to your organization. In part 4, we'll be looking at policy implication and the challenges. First, we'll look at implication for social and economic policies. Already we've started talking about this. First, by not even knowing the size of our population. Also by looking at how rapidly the growth is occurring all over the world, Nigeria included. And the fact that we need to have policies in place that will help us both economically and socially. So we'll look at how population and labor force projection influence policies on education. That's another problem. I was discussing with somebody today and I said that, please allow me to just quickly attend to this call, please. Hello, sir. I'll call you back, sir. I'll call you back, sir. I'll call you back. Yeah. So, sorry about that. I don't even know where the microphone is. Can you still hear me? Wow. I'm alone.
We can hear you, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are hearing you, sir.
I'm with you, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Brilliant. So I was saying that, in fact, this subtopic is so thought-provoking. Policies on education, healthcare, employment, and social security. Okay? So I was saying that we should be prepared for the mother of all strikes. ASU, threatening to go on strike. NLC asking for minimum wage, and they are so resolute about their desire. So I told the person, we don't know where we are going to. Healthcare is there, employment. Don't mind all these things that used to pop up on my screen and all of that. I'm not used to this. So we also look at the impact of aging population on social welfare system and labor market. Maybe I should quickly say this now because this was one of the thoughts that came to my mind. So if you don't know the size of your population and you don't even know how the population is distributed, you don't even know those that are dependent, how will you then plan? Okay, so Osareme, gets a job and is earning, say, 200,000 naira a month. That might not be his ambition, but that's something to start with. But you cannot just say that, because if Osareme is living alone, it's different from if Osareme were married and he has 3 children and his parents are around, they live with him and rely on him. That's a whole different ballgame altogether. So those are some of the conversations that we'll be looking at. Then we'll talk about challenges in projection and planning. Why am I doing it this way? I'm doing it this way so that when we go to the body of today's lecture, we would have talked about it and it just be reiterating and discussions. I hope I'm doing the right thing. So we'll look at challenges in projection and planning. How easy is it to plan? It's easier said than done because there's so much uncertainties. You are projecting, you are planning, but you don't know the future. So you are limited. Okay? So there's also discussions around the impact of unexpected demographic changes. Yes, people move from one place to another. There are issues about pandemic, like the COVID thing that happened that we perhaps have not recovered from. There are natural disasters. There are economic variables that, just change. Like we have an inflation rate of about 30-something%. That is unprecedented. So those are the kind of things that knowing your population, having an idea of your labor force, knowing how to plan, the manpower and the, how to progress the economy are things that as statisticians, we should be concerned about, because they are all, based on figures. Lastly, there'll be an interactive section and group activity. So that group activity, if we get there, we will, look at what Prof wants us to see. So let me digress a bit and then go back to the class and ask, Ogbeni, good afternoon. Adelaya Ogbeni, good afternoon. Okay. Oluwaseun Bolande.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So what questions do you have, or what at the back of your mind? What is the thing that, while we were looking at what we are looking at today, what was that thing that was more, attractive to you? What were you interested in? What do you want to talk about?
Well, my own opinion is, why is it that Nigeria, we are here to do our census for the past, is it 2003 then, to this present moment, that we are unable to know the population size of Nigeria? Because I tried to search online that was the latest population size of the country. I'm seeing 218 billion or so. But is it that accurate or not, sir?
Yeah. So those are the kind of conversations that we'll be looking at. I don't know if Auntie Oni wants to say something to us.
Hello, sir.
Hello,
Yes, sir.
hello, ma. You want to say something?
No, I don't, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, Joseph, how about you? You've not heard your voice.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, Joseph, welcome. How are you today?
I'm good. Trust you are doing fine, sir.
You want to say something?
It's on the issue of the population growth.
Okay, so
So,
Joseph,
yes, sir.
I'll give you 2 minutes. I'll quickly make that call. Then just go on. You have 2 minutes. Go on.
Okay, just like you rightly said, sir, on the issue of the population, I think it is high time Nigeria we know the total number of people, not just Nigerians only, those the immigrants, and it's high time we have data about uh, people in our nation, so that we can be able to plan for, we can have all-round planning in the economic sector, in the way we taxes from people, in the way we run the nation, in the way we run the government. So I think it's very important that we know the accurate number of people in our country, both for foreigners too, and those that are here maybe for on a temporary basis. That's my contribution, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's great. That's great. So we'll be relying on you to help us. Okay. So understanding population growth. So let's discuss this material together. I've looked at it and I found out that it's important for some of us to know what it is, so that we can begin to maybe do research that will help solve some of our localized problems in Nigeria. Although we have problems that are, general to Africa, or say sub-Saharan Africa, but we also have peculiar issues. So here, the material says this part of the lecture
Sir, I
said,
think there is a hand
yeah,
raised up.
yeah, hands raised up. Good, brilliant. Who is that?
Mr. Joseph, sir.
Okay, Joseph, go back. Let's go back to Joseph. Yeah, Mr. Joseph, go on.
Hello, sir. Sir, it's not Joseph, sir. It's blessed. My phone is down, so I joined.
Oh, great, great, great. Your phone is
Yes, sir.
down, but you are joining through Joseph's phone or computer, right?
Yes, sir.
That's great. You want to say something?
No, sir. It's just to
Okay,
inform you so you'll be aware that I'm part of the class.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Thank you, sir.
Jeremiah, welcome. Blessing, welcome. Ogbeni, welcome. Adigun, don't worry, we'll still have time to discuss. It's important for me to also hear from you. It's important. I love it that way. So, understanding population growth. So here we'll set the foundation for understanding how population dynamics are shaped and the implications this trend may have on everything from local resource management to global economic policy. What that means is we look at the foundation, understand how population growth occurs, and then we can now move from there to the other aspects. That's what we have there. So we look at the determinants of population growth. What are the indices? Why is there a population growth in Nigeria, for instance? We'll use Nigeria as a case study. And we'll look at the stages of demographic transition, that, and end up with, looking at the interplay between the trend and the socioeconomic development. Because if you are looking at population growth and you are not looking at how your economy is also developing, then it's a recipe for disaster. Okay, so there needs to be that twin watch as you are watching how the population is growing, which is good in itself. Of course, there are countries in the world that their own problem is underemployment. What do we mean by that? They don't have enough labor force. And what makes your labor force to be high is the population. So as population grows, it has a direct relationship with the growth of the labor force. So that is good in itself. But like I use Osareme as an example, if he lives in a family of 10 and he's the only one earning 200,000, that's a big problem. But let's say he has a wife who also earns 200,000. He has a brother who lives with him, also earns 100,000. That looks a bit better, kind of. That's the kind of thing that we are talking about. So let's open with the basic concepts and determinants. Population growth refers to the increase in the number of individuals in a population. So we are now restricting our definition to humans now. Of course, with the background that some of us have, the word population does not only refer to human beings, but in this class, we are looking at individuals in the population, the increase, not necessarily the number, but the additional. So if you are 100 million today, and tomorrow you are 101 million, it's that 1 million that is the growth. Okay, so it is typically expressed as a percentage of the number in the population at the beginning of a certain period. Okay, it can result from a surplus of birth rate over death rate, as well as from immigrants outnumbering immigrants. So what we have here is there are many factors that can determine the population growth, whether increase or decrease, but they can be subdivided into two. One is the birth and death rate dynamics, and secondly, the migration dynamics. So with the birth and death rate, dynamics, it is the proportion of birth rate in comparison to death rate. So if the birth per year, for instance, and the death rate per year, for instance, are compared, and the birth rate is higher than the death rate, then the population will grow. And that's what we always work towards. And that's why there's an increase in the world population. There are fewer, fatalities. There are more births and less people are dying. So technology and civilization has made it easier for people to live longer, quote and unquote, because this assertion is a global average. There's also the issue of life expectancy, which is low in Nigeria, but there are so many deaths when compared to deaths. That was why Osarime's concern was quickly addressed. If you looked at that world population, the way the birth rate was increasing, it was faster than the death rate. So that's why there's a growth, there's an increase. So in terms of birth rate, it is the number of births per thousand per year. That's birth rate. So on the contrary, the death rate will be number of deaths per thousand per year. So if Nigeria is say 220 million, and then at the end of this year, the birth rate is say maybe 200 per thousand or 2 per thousand, and the death rate is 1 per thousand. So because there are 2 births per thousand people and 1 death per thousand people, then there's an increase of 1. I don't know if that makes sense. 5 per thousand, 2 per thousand. If it was the other way around, because of maybe pandemic, war, hunger, and all those natural disasters, and then the birth is 5 people per thousand, and the death is 15 people per thousand. Somebody tell us what will happen to the population growth. I take that again. Say country A, there are 5 births per thousand per annum, and there are 15 deaths per thousand per annum. What happens to that population? Anybody? Wow. That's interesting. Blessing. You introduce yourself, so speak to us.
Sir, please, I didn't really get the question, sir.
Yes, I also imagine that you perhaps did not get the question. So there are 2 major factors that influence population growth. But
Yes, sir.
in this material, there are 3. There are birth rate, death rate, and migration.
Yes, sir.
So birth rate, how many children,
Yes.
okay, are given birth to per thousand in a year? That's birth rate. And what that one does is it increases the population size.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So although there are children that are born and also die, that's mortality rate. But if there are more children that are born and they remain alive, then of course that's an increase. And then the death rate is the number of people who die, number of people who die, okay?
Yes, sir.
1,000 per annum. I'm now saying, if you have a population and you record 5 births
Yes, sir.
per thousand per year, and 15 deaths equal per thousand per year, what will happen to the population growth of that country or environment?
Sir, for that year, the population growth will reduce because the number of deaths is way higher than the number of deaths.
Fantastic. So there's an increase, there's a growth in population because there are measures taken to reduce death rates. And there are now measures to ensure that children that are born remain alive. And that's why you have things like immunization, you have things like, maternity leave so that they can take care of the children. And they also go to the hospital from time to time. What do you call that thing that pregnant women go to the hospital for? What's that thing? Is there any married person in this class?
Antenatal.
Oh, you already know, but you're not married.
About to.
Okay, so you start studying that aspect of life. Okay, great. I like that. It's good. It's part of the syllabus because nobody wants to be pregnant and not have that child. So what are we saying? We are saying that if you pair the birth rate with the death rate, and you see that there are more births than deaths, then that population is going to grow. So if you're not taking records of the birth rate, you're not taking records of the death rate, then you cannot really account for the change in the population. What are some of the measures that will make the death rate to be on the decrease? So the idea is that if you want an increase in population, if you want the population to grow positively, that means you want a forward growth, then you must ensure that you decrease the death rate. And how does that happen? One measure is to have advancement in healthcare, improve people's living condition, and then population will grow. The last one is the migration. Migration is the movement of people from one area to the other. Okay? So when you are thinking about the population of Nigeria, also remember the Japa syndrome. Nigerians are also living, but as you consider people that are living, you also have to consider people that are coming in. So there's immigration, okay, and there's emigration. So immigration is the coming in of people into Nigeria, maybe from Cote d'Ivoire, Niger, Chad, Senegal, Ghana. I don't know if Ghana will still come to Nigeria. Republic of Benin. That's immigration. There could even be people from advanced countries. Then there is emigration. The rates, the people that are leaving Nigeria. I don't know if you know that Nigerians are leaving to anywhere. The other day, my mechanic left to Zimbabwe. You know, it was funny to me, but I thought about it. The living condition in Zimbabwe could be better. So people are not only living to the UK. My cousin left about 3 years ago to Egypt. She's been there for 3 years. I know a lot of friends that I have that used to be in Nigeria. They've gone to Ghana. So let's discuss that also. From your own observation, which one is more, emigration or immigration? And where else do you know that Nigerians are moving to? Let me start with, yes, I don't know, Benny, I like that. Go.
Emigration is on the higher side here in Nigeria.
Where are they going
Yes,
to?
people, many people, they relocate to US, UK, Canada, like that. Then, as you said too, some people too are going to Egypt because I don't know whether they are finding it comfortable there too. So many people also relocate to Egypt, US, UK, Canada most especially, and US and UK.
Madam.
So,
Madam.
Yes, sir.
Are you planning to migrate?
Hello, sir.
Are you planning to?
Yes, sir.
You are planning.
If opportunity come, I will.
where will if you have a opportunity to go to Egypt, will you be willing?
No, it's not a place like Egypt too.
Okay, so
not a place like Egypt, sir.
Where would you like to go to?
US or Canada.
But have you also heard about Japada?
That one is real. It's real. It is people that cannot walk. For people that cannot walk, there is no place that is good for a lazy person. A lazy person will never be comfortable anywhere.
Okay, so in your own opinion, if we want to check the population growth of Nigeria, you will believe that it is growing, maybe not at a fast pace, because you believe that there are plenty people many children being born, the death rate has reduced, but there's also migration, right? People are leaving.
Yes,
is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, great. Obo, Shalom. Obo.
Sir.
You want to join the discussion? You have any contribution?
I support what Mrs. Obeni said. It's more of immigration.
Okay. So more people are leaving the country.
Yes.
So if you are going to do your own analysis, you should also consider that, because if we don't have the figures and we need to speculate, we must take that into consideration. All right. So let's go on. So we want to look at the demographic transition theory. Okay, so we are going to look at the 4 stages. It says that the theory describes the transition from high birth and death rates to low birth and death rates. as part of the economic development of a country from a pre-industrial to an industrialized economy. It is typically divided into 4 stages. Before going into the 4 stages, let me try to substantiate this theory. What this theory is saying is that in the pre-industrial era, that is so many time back, there was a high, prevalence of both of these rates. Birth rate was high, death rate was high. There were so many births and so many deaths. That's at a level. But today, it will interest you that if you take the global average, there are fewer births. Rates now, I talk about the rates. There are fewer birth rates than before. We no longer have people give birth to 6, 7, 8 children. On this note, I will want contributions from Jeremiah and anybody to portray the fact that the average person now wants to have 2 children. Okay, so there's a decrease in birth rates. In fact, teenage pregnancy and unwanted pregnancy has also declined because of the issue of contraceptives. And then our lifestyles. There are a lot of people who can't even have children to even start with because of many factors. However, what are we saying? There is a transition. So it's a theory. Moving from high birth rate and high death rate to low birth rate and low death rate. I don't know, somebody's microphone is on. It seemed to me that somebody is interested in this conversation. Osareme, go first.
Yes, sir. You are pretty right. But this, if you look at it, it depends on the region, or the part of the world you are talking about. If you're talking about the developed countries, we have pretty more lower birth rates compared to the developing countries. Developing countries, they are still following their cultural belief. This contraceptive is not really being practiced there. That's why developing countries have more birth rates than the developed countries. In developing countries, you will see women giving birth to about maybe 6 or 3 children at a time, like that. But that's really, we hardly find that in the developed countries. So if you go down, I've read through, if you go down, you see the difference between the.
You're right. You are right. You have a very solid point. I'm going to do a demonstration in this class now. You have a solid point because when you come up with such theories, it does not apply to every environment in the same way. But on the average, you also agree with me that there is a transition. Let me try something. Let me just try something. So I'm married. I have 1 child. Jeremiah, can you put on your microphone? Jeremiah. Please, let me just try with 3 people. Anybody? Joseph, Adigu, anybody? Just put on your mic. I want to ask you quick questions. Let's do that. Yeah.
I'm on, sir.
Joseph, you are not married yet. When you get married, how many children would you like to have?
2.
2. Let's move to somebody else.
Same
Anybody?
here, sir.
Blessing, yeah, same here.
For me,
yeah,
I would like to have as many as 15 to 20, sir.
Okay, good. That's yes. You explain your reason. Oluwaseun.
Like 4, sir.
You like to have how many?
4.
4. Okay. Ogbeni. Jerry. Okay, let's just use that small sample size. Okay, so based on probability in this class, it seems to me that we can say that there are fewer people who want to have more children. Okay, fewer people. So Simon wants to have 15. We have his reasons. Maybe it's Kubana chief priest or Kubana. Simon, can you explain to us?
15? Did you say 15?
Simon, hold on. Adulaye Ogbeni, yes. Osareme said that he would like to have like 10 to 15 children. You want to say something to him?
So it's not 10 to 15, no. You're going to be saying it that it's 20 children. And he meant it. 20.
Okay, yes. Ogbeni, can you speak to him? I want to hear, what do you have to tell him?
I can understand him, sir.
Please
Paraventure,
explain.
you know, he's a farmer.
Okay.
He's a farmer, so you will need many children that will assist him in his farm work. Paraventure, he wants to, you know, he will love female to be even more than males, so that they will be able to give them out to make more money.
Okay, so he's
bride price.
That's not true. Business.
Yes, I understand him, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Because I was confused when he said 20.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Yeah. You have an issue. You want to explain? Yeah, explain.
Yes. On that, it's not about making money, but it's about to procreate, to have more lineage, as far as my to have more lineage. So that's it. That's
like
not
Abraham.
about making the wise.
Like
yes.
Abraham.
Yes,
Abraham.
That's my vision. So that's it.
Okay. I understand. Like Abraham, Israel, and all those things. No problem. I wish you all the best.
He will be Father Abraham of our time, sir.
Yes, I wish
Father
you have
of many nations.
I wish you have
Father Abraham of our time.
Enough. All right, let's come back to class. Okay. So
it will be father of many problems.
Yeah. Okay, so let's come back to the class. We don't have much time. We could have spent more time enjoying ourselves, but let's focus. So there are 4 stages in the demographic transition theory. So we have high fluctuating, which is high birth rate and death rate. Okay, so because the birth rate is high and the death rate is high, the growth will be very minimal. That explains itself. Then there is the early expanding. That is when you now begin to work on the death rate. You are trying to reduce the death rate. So at that stage in this theory, there is a significant drop in the death rate, but the birth rate still remains high. So that leads to rapid population growth. If you did economics in secondary school, there is Reverend T.R. Malthus's theory of population. So I think it was in the UK where this famous, I think it was a professor, realized that population was really growing. And we have said it's okay because it affects labor force, more manpower, there's economic development. That's why you hear about countries like Canada and Australia asking for people to come over. Because when you don't have that number, you're not going to be productive. Like Osareme now, when he has his children, he throws them in the farm. Maybe after primary 6, they just go farming and all that. So he's going to produce more. Makes some sense. Okay.
Not like that.
Don't worry. I'm just using you to make us understand the point. Okay, you know you're my brother now. So what are we saying? We are saying that at the end of the day, this theory was that, look, you have to plan. You must make sure that there is increase in productivity. Because if population continues to increase at this geometric rate and the food production is going at an arithmetic rate, there will come a time when there will be, poverty, hunger, and all those evil things we don't like talking about. However, they planned and were able to control it, okay? But we, in our own instance, we need to look inwards. So those things that the Reverend talked about did not happen in those developed countries. And those are the kind of things that we face in rural areas, especially in our own time. So there's the early expanding. So what's early expanding? Death rate reduces, but birth rate is still on the increase. Then stage 3, late expanding. So the birth rate now starts declining. Don't forget that at the high fluctuating, they were both high. At the early expanding, death rate has started dropping. At the late expanding, birth rate also is on the decline. And finally, low fluctuating. What is that about? Both birth rate and death rates are low. So it now stabilizes the population growth. That's what the theory says. So you should be able to replicate this theory if you are given opportunity to talk about it, or if it comes out as a question in the examination. So we now look at global and regional trends. So first, we talk about the current trend in population growth. It says globally, population growth rates have been declining since the peak in the late 20th century. Not everybody here experienced the 20th. Not everybody here should have experienced this 2024. Nobody should be less than 24 here. Maybe somebody is less than 24. So about the time that many of us were born, there was that, decline. The growth began to change. Okay, but that is not across all regions, and that's what we're looking at. And that's what Osareme is talking about. However, significant regional variations exist. There are still places where maybe due to their custom, their religion, and these same persuasions that my friend has, those things are still high. So you might be surprised that in Ibadan, University of Ibadan class, Osareme sounds, isolated in his thinking. But if he goes to his village, he will see people that are like him, so many of them. Okay, so we go. So it says most developed countries are experiencing very low to negative population growth rate. Why? Because there are lower births and higher proportions of elderly populations. So for those of you that want to migrate to developed countries, just a word for you. Also consider your age and ask yourself, are you still productive? For instance, if you ask me, will I be willing to relocate fully? Why would I want to really relocate? Maybe if there's a threat to my life, which isn't so now. But the way Nigeria is going, there's threats to everybody's life. Where you cannot have, a threat to every man's life, and I don't mean every person, every married man. That threat is the fact that every day you wake up with so many responsibilities. Sometimes people don't even care where you get the money from. Just make sure you make it available. However, that's a different conversation. So we want to look at the differences between developed and developing countries. In developing countries, there is a lower population growth rate. What are the factors contributing to this? There is a higher living standard, so people are living longer. There's better access to education and healthcare. That's why we travel there to go and have education and healthcare. And more widespread use of contraception. In fact, there are certain ages that people get to, and they take care of their reproductive organs so that they will not be able to raise offsprings. So there's a natural one that people do. There is the artificial one that people do, and there is the one that comes with age. So it says aging population and higher dependency ratios are common challenges in developed countries. In developing countries like Nigeria, there is higher population growth rate because people are giving birth, sometimes, permits me to use the word, recklessly. And we are also, making sure that there are fewer deaths. People now live peacefully. People are more religious. If you have health issues, if you don't take the orthodox medicine, there's the other, and all of that. People are taking care of themselves more relatively. And there's improvement in healthcare. Many developing countries face challenges related to youth bulges, which can impact employment, infrastructure, and social services. So there are so many youths. Are they employed? Those are the kind of questions that we'll consider as we progress. So what are the driving factors? Number one, in developing countries, urbanization, higher income levels, and changing societal values have led to lower birth rates. You see now, education, having, societal values. Like I want to have 3 children so I can take care of them well. I want all of them to graduate from the universities. And then I also want them to, parents are so worried about their children up to the point when even they have outgrown living under them. So there's that factor. In developing countries, although urbanization and education are increasing, cultural and economic factors still contribute to higher birth rate. This is what Osarime is saying. Culture and economic factors. So there's still polygamy. There are people who marry multiple wives. And did I say that there are women who marry multiple husbands? You decide if those things are real. But what we are saying is, our culture also contributes to the fact that there are higher birth rates in developing countries. That is not to say that there is an increase in birth rate, as it were. It is just to say that when you compare developed countries like the US to developing countries like Nigeria, what this statement means, Osan, are you with me? That it's higher in developing countries. So it says,
yes,
moreover, international migration from developing countries to developed countries has become a significant factor in the population dynamics of both regions. There are countries that you go to today and you will see so many Nigerians, you will think that you are in Lagos. Okay, so there are places that you go to. Meanwhile, there are also places that you get to and you feel isolated. A lot of us are living, but they are mostly living to the same particular regions. Like Ogbeni said, she would like to leave the country. She will want to go to the UK, Canada, and US. And that's where everybody wants to go to. All right, techniques for projecting labor force. Now we've moved from just the population to a core part of the population, which is the labor force. So he says this part of the lecture equips you with a thorough understanding of the labor force structure and the dynamics, and introduces you to foundational techniques used in labor force projection. How can we project, the number of people that are employed in a particular country in a year? Allow me to digress again. So there's this company in Ibadan, it's called Sumal. You should know that company. I live near I don't know if they have branches in Ibadan, but I live near their head office. It's close to my house. And if you see the number of people that troop out of that region, not because of Sumal, because there's also Zatec, there's 7-Up, and so many other. I live in Oliole, so to say. So I was saying to somebody recently that if those companies leave Nigeria, there will be an increase in crime rates. Let's digress. Is there somebody who agrees with me, or there's somebody who thinks that I'm not quite correct? Let me go back to the class and ask anybody. Yes. So I was saying that if those companies that employ a lot of youths are not able to do that again because of whatever reason, there's going to be a problem. Yeah, I want somebody to speak to that. Anybody? Sorry,
Yes,
go.
sir. Okay.
Okay, sir. On what you just said is the fact. Like what is going on now? Isha is gradually leaving Nigeria. I imagine what that will cost. And likewise, I want to make an how I put name a like
Contribution.
a similar contribution like to that. If we look at before the issue of migration to the Western world, Jabarism, you see that there
Yeah.
were a lot of crime rates. When the people that started traveling out, they sort of wets, they're sending money down to their family. It kind of like in Edo State where I came from, the crime is drastically reduced because of when abroad traveling. You get it now. People sending money, opening business like that. Just imagine that is not happening, and look at you imagine what the situation will be like. So that is it.
Great observation. Yes, I think Blessing wants to add to it.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to say I agree with you, because if this company you talked about, Suma, leaves the country, the unemployment rate will increase, because the people working with the company, they'll become jobless, and they won't have something doing. And the more there is unemployment, the more there will be high risk of crimes.
Yeah.
Because nowadays we see a lot of young people venturing into Yahoo and other
Yeah.
stuffs like that, killing,
Yeah.
kidnapping, robbing, and all that. In fact, there was
Yeah.
a time in my place last year when I went home, I was told that, no, I got to know that almost every day, some young guys were robbing houses. And when they get to house, if you don't have money, they go as low as packing people's foodstuffs. Like it was that bad. If you don't
Wow.
have money, if it's rice you have at home, a pot of soup, they will carry it.
Wow.
That's because the economic situation of the country is bad. People don't have food to eat. People are hungry.
Wow.
So they can do and undo just to get food on their table. So
Wow.
if there is increase in unemployment rate, in fact, crime will so much increase. Sir. Thank you, sir.
So from what you said now, it means that what we are discussing today is very important. Is that what you're saying?
Sir, it is, sir.
So we should go beyond discussing it, and we need to begin to apply it. It's a serious matter. Okay, so I don't know. I wish that Auntie Oni can just make a comment. I desire that she says something, but I don't know for our coach. Auntie, you want to say something? Okay, so let's go on. Let's go on since she's chosen not to say anything for now. So we'll go on. So we want to define the labor force. The labor force comprises all people who meet specific criteria for being classified as either employed or unemployed, but actively seeking employment. So, interesting definition. So the labor force is not just all the people that are employed. It's the people that are in that category of being employable. So maybe in Nigeria, you say something between ages 18 and 60, something like that. So if you are found in that bracket, you make up the labor force. In Israel, those are the people, although they also have cultural biases, could be only males and not females. But at the end of the day, this definition helps us very well by saying who meet specific criteria. So this criteria might vary from country to country. So it says it includes individuals who are currently working, as well as those who are jobless, but are actively looking for work and available to start. My digression at this point is something that bothers me a lot. I'm worried about this. You see, several years ago, maybe say 40 years ago, approximately, when you finish from the university, the government has a job for you because you are among the few who are able to get to that level of education. Permit me to say that our economy was lovely. And the need for, in fact, corruption was also low. Even though in those days it was spoken of, but you can't compare it to what entails now. So you have people who are graduates, people who have multiple degrees, and they are jobless. I'm saying, and I'm advocating along with us here, that these are critical issues that when we do our research and our studies, when we discuss with people, when we find ourselves in religious homes or communities, we should emphasize people, acquiring vocational skills. Because once you are in that bracket, you're already part of the labor force, whether you have a job or you are jobless. But you agree with me, there are more jobless people in our own time who are in that age bracket than those that have jobs. So it's a cause for concern. But let's continue with our discussion. Labor force participation rate. Let's look at it. This is a measure of the active portion of an economic's labor force. It is calculated as a ratio of the total number of labor force participants to the overall size of their cohort. That is the national population of the same age range. So what are we saying? If our age range is 18 to 65, and we say there are maybe 120 million Nigerians that are aged between 18 and 65, and we look at that 120 million, and we see that 80 million of them are employed, whether self-employed or working for other people, and 40 million are unemployed, jobless. It means that the ratio is 80 to 40, which is 2 to 1. That is not bad. That's not good, but that's not too bad. Let me put it that way. But the situation is not like that. It's the other way around. How do you know? Just think about your street. Look at how many people are employed and how many people are in that category that are unemployed. The other day we are having a class. I don't know whether it was here or in the other stat 779 or so. And Prof was asking, how many of you are self-sponsored? Yes, it was in statistical data mining. So Prof wanted to know if we were self-sponsored or we were sponsored. What that means is, are you paying your school fees yourself? My dear, the ratio is always very alarming. Someone is 26, you're out of the university, maybe you finished at the age of 23 or 24, you've done youth service, and you have a degree, sometimes a good degree. Now you want to go for a master's, somebody still has to pay. And you're done with the master's, somebody still needs to pay. Some still have to get money from their sponsors. That's where we have found ourselves. So I have an outcry, and I'm crying out to say that it is not only writing jam and going to university to study medicine or pharmacy or whatever. It is also about, being able to use your hands. Because these days, you need a plumber, you need a carpenter, and the ones that are available don't even know the jobs. You take your car to the mechanic, they're sorry for you if you get into the wrong hands. I don't know if there's anybody that wants to echo what I've said, but before you echo it, let me just finish this portion, and then we'll now take a short break, not break as it were, and talk about these things that matters to us. So he says here, categorization of labor force. He says the labor force is typically categorized into various groups based on employment status. One, employed and unemployed. Another way that you can classify them is type of employment: full employment, part-time employment, or seasonal employment. Another way to categorize is the different industries that they are found in, or maybe their demographic characteristics. So these are ways of categorizing the labor force. Socioeconomic factors affecting population. One, economic conditions. Okay, when there is a recession like we have, you can reduce the labor force participating due to discouragement of workers when jobs are scarce. Jobs are actually scarce, but my dear, if you have the skills, it's easier. So develop your skills. Demographic trends. Aging population may lead to a decline in labor force participation as more individuals enter into retirement. This is another thing that we need to take care of as a nation, having a very robust system that takes care of people that are retired. You hear of people not getting that gratuity and pension. You hear of people, slumming, people not being, people who have even served the nation having issues. Educational attainment. Okay, so generally, educational levels often correlate with higher labor force. So ordinarily, as we get more educated, you're supposed to have more people participating in the labor force, particularly among women and disadvantaged groups. So if women are also allowed to get educated, can also help, because what education does is it enhances your mental capacity. That's why somebody who is a graduate, if he ventures into any trade, if that person actually went to school, is more likely to do the job better than somebody who did not acquire as much education. Then cultural norms. In some regions, cultural expectations about gender roles can significantly influence whether individuals, especially women, participate in the labor force. Of course, there are some religions, some cultures that confine women to the kitchen. Okay, so education and enlightenment has also changed that narrative. Whether it has been helpful or otherwise, that's a discussion for another day, because there are many homes now that are broken because of issues bordering around women not being submissive to their husband and men not even taking care of them because whatever. Let's not go into conversation that will cause confusion. So projection methods. One, introduction to basic techniques for projecting the labor force. So we are not only going to look at what constitutes the labor force, we also want to see how we can, forecast the labor force. If we were doing numerical statistics or computer statistics, we'll talk about how to use models to predict. But generally speaking, there are also native methods or traditional methods that you can use. So here it says, effective labor force projections are crucial for national planning, influencing decisions on everything from education to retirement age policies. There's always this debate about retirement age. Is it 65 or 70 for professors, for GOs at times? GOs will retire. Very interesting conversation, but that's besides the matter. The most important thing is that how many years are you going to be employed? If at the end of the day, you get into university at the age of 20, you finish at the age of 25 because of ASU strikes, you finish service at 26, 27, you do masters, and sometimes some schools make you do it for 3 years. And then at 30, you now finally decide that you want to get a job. And then you retire at 65. Or maybe you work in a company and you retire at 60. Those are issues that are very necessary in projecting, the labor force. So there is the cohort component method. This method involves dividing the population into cohorts based on age, sex, and other relevant characteristics, and using survival rates and other demographic factors to project changes in each cohort over time. So if you can, segregate the population into different strata using these parameters, then you can look at the changes that are happening in those different sections. Maybe gender would be a good one, sex, male and female, and see how, it evolves. Then you can use that to understand the labor force. Then there's also the trend extrapolation. Let's read that together. This technique extends historical trends into the future to forecast changes in labor force participation. It is typically used when historical data show consistent patterns that are expected to continue. Okay, this makes sense to us in the sense that we are using historical data to predict what the future holds. Then there's the mathematical method, the econometric method. So it's the statistical. So it's a statistical technique to analyze and forecast labor force trends based on a range of variables. I think everybody here must have done econometrics before. So you look at economic indicators and then you use that to make your predictions. And it's useful for policy intervention in economic conditions. So let me pause before we go to the case studies. There's a discussion that I want us to engage on, maybe for about 5 minutes. Labor says they want 615,000 per month. Government says, as at the last time, authentic 48,000. Let me go around the class, beginning with Oluwaseun Bolande. You've not said anything. What's your position? Who is more realistic? Government that says, oh, economy is poor. Where do you want us to get the money from? We can only offer 48,000 as minimum. We are not even able to pay 30,000. Some states owing salaries. Labor says, no, you have removed subsidy. You have increased electricity tariff. You have made life more difficult. Prices of goods have gone up. Cost of living is high. Please, we need 615,000. Bolanle Oluwaseun. Let's hear you.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, go on.
I think I support the labor people because the rate at which things are expensive nowadays. How much is 20,000 naira you take to the market, or maybe even 50,000 you take to the market, and it's even reach the middle of the nylon that you take to the market. Can you hear me?
Oluwaseun.
Hello.
Oluwaseun. Oluwaseun, can you hear me? Hello. Okay. So even if Oluwaseun cannot hear me, I'll reserve my comment. Let's see. Osareme, go on.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. My opinion is that both parties are not realistic. I will explain my opinion. They are not realistic in the fact that looking at, let's talk about the government that is proposing 58,000 naira. If you look at that amount, it would not be enough. Looking at the way situation are now, looking at the high cost of living, food stuff, and other things that follows, that amount will not go. If we cannot go for a month for a family. They also looking at the labor counterpart that is saying that the government have to pay about 600 or something thousand naira for a month. The government cannot pay. Let us be realistic. The government cannot pay that amount. But both parties have to come to a compromise, come to a middle cost. The amount that the government is proposing is far too low. They can increase it. Like, if you look at what Lagos government is doing now, it has increased the minimum wage. Lagos and government and the Edo state government, they have both increased their minimum wage to 70,000 naira. If state could do that, how about the federal government? I believe the federal government can do more. If states can propose 70,000 naira, so why about what the federal government can do better? If they can propose maybe 120 or thereabouts. So I believe both parties should come to a middle course to strike a balance. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Joseph.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Blessing, go on.
Yes, sir. My own opinion is that the increment of minimum wage will not really resolve anything, to my best of knowledge. I feel if there's increment now, if they like, they should increase the minimum wage to 100,000 or so. The market women, they will still increase prices of goods. So I think, is there no a way whereby the federal government or the people in charge of the country, president or whoever, the senate, parastatals or whatever, is there no a way whereby they can cut down the prices of goods? At least there was a time we were buying a bag of rice for 8,000 naira. Now it's 80,000. That's times 10. So if you increase minimum wage now to 100,000, a bag of rice can go as high as 250,000 naira, and there will still be hardship. We will still be suffering. But if there's any way, I don't know if it's exchange rate that is causing it, because there was a time dollar came down, prices of food did not come down. But if there's any way the federal government or the president can cut down the prices of items we purchase in the market, I feel things will become a little bit better than even increasing the minimum wage. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Abo.
Sir, hello, sir. Hello, sir. On that, what you just said now. Sorry, sir, for intruding.
Go on.
What you just said now. She's just talking about high cost of food stuff. What about houses? The landlords say are increasing can government control the rent, the price of rentage, the fee of rentage? Government cannot control that. So is that is just an aspect of the economy? Let us look at robustly. There's no way that government should increase the minimum wage, but there should be a balance between the two, both parties. That's what I'm saying. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Adigun, Jeremiah, Obo. That's how we are marking attendance. So we mark attendance by the things you say. So Jeremiah, Obo, and Adigun, I don't think you are present.
Hello, sir.
Yes, go on.
There
Let's hear you.
should be agreement between the government and the labor force, because government can actually promise and also fee. So even if government actually agree to what the labor force is saying and is unable to pay that amount, at the end of the day, will be owing us. So there should be an agreement on what the government can actually pay.
Okay, Shalom. My question to you is, who is more unrealistic? Is it government or labor?
Sir, is the labor. Because
that's
they know that sir?
Okay, so you are saying that they are dreaming, Abi?
So we know the country we are in. We know that the government can actually agree and choose not to pay. So what's not the use of agreeing to something that they will not do?
Wow. Serious. Okay, let me just ask Jeremiah. Jeremiah, you are the person that will decide. How much should they agree on? Tell us, and let's go back to our lecture.
Yes, for what they put
it? Osareme says that
hello, sir.
Both of them are realistic.
Okay.
Go on. You don't know.
Yes. So,
Okay, no problem.
due to what
Now, these are part of the. Yeah,
said,
go on.
I can also see the fact. I can also see the fact that due to what has happened in the past, see that there is realistic in what the decision the government want to take, is not effective. It won't be effective, and it won't meet the targets, and it won't be of help even to the citizen of the country. So, to me, they increasing it has no positive impact, and if they also leave it, it has no positive, because if they increase it now, it is as if it will be an awareness to all the citizens of the country, and some of them will want to increase the price of some goods. They want to increase it in one areas or the other, and so what is now the essence of increasing it? So I can just say they should leave it.
I get what you are saying. You are saying that it may cause inflation. Inflation that is already high. If you now increase, it will now become worse. Well, I leave you to decide on that. Let's go on. So let's look at case studies. We want to look at application of these methods in national planning. Our first case study is forecasting impact of educational reforms. So it's an example where cohort component methods were used to project how improvement in educational levels could affect labor force quality and economic productivity over the next 2 decades. So that can be something to work on. How will the labor force be impacted if there is a focus, okay, on improving the educational levels? Of course, some people say that the standard of education has dropped in Nigeria. Others argue that it's the quality of education, whether standard or quality. If you go to our institutions, we know that it is crying out for real help. Okay, and that also accounts for the quality of graduates that we have today. The second case study is, these are like research work for all of us. Economic downturn and labor participation. So this study might use trend extrapolation and the economic model. Remember that there are 3 models, 3 methods. There is the cohort component method, there is the trend extrapolation, and there's the econometric models. So these case studies are unique in themselves, using different methods and sometimes a combination of 2 methods. So this particular economic downturn and labor participation could use both the trend extrapolation and the econometric methods to do what? To analyze how a prolonged economic downturn could alter labor force participation rates, particularly focusing on youth unemployment rates. That's a major issue, and I think somebody should embark on, it's not a difficult thing to actually do, because sometimes by just creating, surveys, maybe a Google form, and you start asking very good questions, you can begin to receive very interesting responses, which are not only okay for analysis, but also could be suggestions of how to solve such problems. The third case study is aging population and workforce participation. So it says a scenario where econometric models predict the effect of an aging population on labor force participation, helping policymakers design suitable retirement and healthcare policies. So even in some advanced countries, caregivers are in high demand. And it might surprise you that the caregivers are not only for children, but for, the aging population. In advanced countries, they have a structure where you can really cater for your aged ones. not only by government structure, but by even private intervention. Those are not the things that we really care about here in this part of the world. So that could be another study that could showcase the difference in what is happening, comparing what obtains in the developed countries vis-a-vis what happens in developing countries. Manpower planning and economic development. So this is the third string. So we have seen population growth, we've seen labor force. Now we are looking at manpower planning and economic development. So it's a progressive thing. And if you pick it at manpower planning and economic development, you won't solve the problem. You have to take the problem from the root. A lot of times we focus on the symptoms, whereas there are, root, causes. So if you want to focus on economic development, it is wise that you take it from, proper database. One of the things that we've answered today was when we were looking at worldometer and we saw the rate at which the platform was updated. We were worried that could that be true? And we tried to offer an explanation which was plausible. So planning is important. But how can you plan when you don't have a database, a reliable one for that matter? So let's go on. This part of the lecture emphasizes the practical role of manpower planning in national economic development. By understanding and anticipating the needs of the economy, nations can prepare a workforce capable of meeting current and future challenges, thus fostering a more robust and resilient economic environment. Let me summarize this by saying, please, if you are here and you are listening to me, I want to appeal to you that apart from developing your skills in terms of, having more academic qualifications, try to learn soft skills too. Engage in collaborative work. Communication, critical thinking are tools that are important in our age. And peradventure, you are already okay with that. Teach your younger ones, your children. Help them to, be able to use their hands. Let them not be left behind. Not just because they are going to earn more, but because they are going to contribute to the economic development. Something I said so many beautiful things today. The only thing that I have said that I don't consider too beautiful is that I want to have 20 children. Okay? But I said one beautiful thing. He said to us that in his hometown, where he comes from, there was a decline in the crime rate. Why? Because a lot of people have relatives that are outside the country who send foreign currency. And you know how bad our currency is. So if there's somebody abroad who sends you $100 every month, that person is a king. Because $100 every month is about 150,000. And that can take care of things in the home. So sometimes we don't even care the jobs that they do over there. We should care. But, some of them are doing very illegal jobs. But let's even talk about people that are doing legitimate jobs there. He says to us that they send money back and then crime rate, was on the low. So if you want to solve, okay, we said today there's kidnapping. We said today there is, communal clashes and so on. If at the end of the day, you know the number of people in your country and you know those that are part of the labor force, you know those that are not employed, and then you can plan on how to empower them and also give them employment rather than sending people money, giving people money as loan, 50,000 naira. I was sending them 1/4 bag of rice. Somebody used to say, teach people how to fish, empower them, give them skills, not send 8,000 naira to them. Those things don't change people. So I'm saying, I'm adding to the voice of anybody who agrees with me that you can empower people by, educating them, by also you improving yourself so that the people in your sphere, people around you, will be able to not only take care of themselves, but take care of people who will now become their own dependents. Okay, so manpower planning, definition and significance. Let's look at the definition and look at the significance. Manpower planning, you have to study these materials well for purpose of exam, but you also have to study them well for the purpose of implementation. You do a small business, empower your staff, let them, have other sources of income. You pay them 30,000 naira and you want them to work from morning till evening with you, and they have a family of 4. You are not doing yourself service. But if you can have a structure where they can go back to school, if you can have a system where they can do some other things, that's what we are talking about, investing in people. And it's not often talked about in our society. So manpower planning, also known as human resource planning, involves analyzing and forecasting the numbers, skills, and types of employees needed to achieve an organization's objective. So you want to embark on a project, you must consider the people. There's so much emphasis on the material, on money. You also have to consider the people, the manpower, and the kind of skills, so that if you put the right people in the right places, then you can see that your output will be better off. It says this planning extends to the national level, where it becomes crucial for aligning the workforce with the country's economic development goals. So sometimes we want to build maybe a railway, we call a Chinese company. We have crude oil, we send it abroad and buy it from them as refined products. Everything is imported, including toothpick. So those are the issues that we have contended with over a long time. And the end has come to the roost. The thing is now showing. Nobody's going to get us out of this situation that we find ourselves in. It's not the current government that put us in this situation. Yes, you could argue that they have even made it worse. Okay. But if we don't do something, if you don't do something about it, if you don't go to your pastor or your leader and share some of these ideas, so that at the end of the day, we can all be better off. But let's come back to class. Purpose in national economic development. Sorry about my passion in this particular lecture. It's just that I'm worried. Okay, so it says effective manpower planning ensures that the right number of people with the right skills are available to perform the necessary jobs at the right time. Please visit our ministries. Just go to secretariat. You will see people who resume and do near to nothing till the end of the day. And you go there and you need their intervention, they are not ready to listen to you. But I can tell you, if such people have opportunity to leave the country and they get jobs outside, they are the kind of people who don't have time for other things. Because when you are in those climes, if you don't do your job, you will lose the job. But that's another conversation. I'm just throwing so many things at us. Some of them you're already aware of, but I'm trying to emphasize them so that that burden can be on you, and then you make a difference when you start. Because each person that makes a difference here actually changes the rate, the growth rate. Every decision you make towards positive or otherwise. We have not even talked about people who embezzle our funds, ridiculous amounts and all of that, but that's not related to this work. What relates to this is make sure that you know the number of people that are going to help to do the job and put them there. Put them there. If you have worked remotely or worked with those guys in advanced country, they pay you, but they also use you. Oh, yeah. Oh, I earn $50 per hour. No problem, but they will use your time. You cannot be idle and earn that. That's what we are saying. Okay, let's go on. Okay, so what happens is that, secondly, says it helps government manage changes in employment due to technological advances, globalization, and demographic shifts, and ensures that economic opportunities are maximized. So what is the role of education and vocational training? Education and vocational training are pivotal in shaping a skilled and adaptable workforce. That's what it does. Capable of meeting the evolving demands of the job market. So it is no longer just educational training. There should also be vocational training. In some countries, a student's performance is not only based on academic performance. There's a percentage that goes for academic performance. There's a percentage that goes in community contribution. There's also vocational skills. So if a child does not have maybe at the higher secondary school level in some advanced countries, they ensure that you are able to do volunteer work where you contribute. Because in some of those countries, they actually pay you, okay? So there are countries where they actually pay the children. Once you are born there, you are being paid by the government. But, in our own case, it's not exactly the same. All right, educational alignment with labor market needs. So there needs to be workshops and symposium and, real training happening so that what is needed in the labor market is what is being taught in our schools. So it says here, by aligning educational curricula with current and projected job market requirements, countries can ensure that their population possesses relevant skills, thus reducing unemployment and underemployment rates. Permit me to say that's why I like our unit, and that's why I thank God for Professor Lubuse with that lab that he has there. The beautiful thing is that there's a demand for certain types of skills, but what is being taught in school does not prepare people for that market. So that's the kind of thing that is being described here. Then we have educational programs, including vocational training, should be continuously updated to reflect the latest technological and industrial development, preparing students for future challenges and opportunities. Okay, so we've had instances of computer science graduates who never even use the computer as it were. In my own time, okay, we're doing computer programming, but we're not using computer, we're just writing code that we did not even understand. We only needed to memorize it properly and then drop it, because sometimes even the person taking it also did the same thing. But the whole dynamics has changed, and we must begin to look at that. Okay, so sectoral demands and skill gap. So we are now looking at different sectors. First, utilization of demographic data. Demographic data provide insight into the composition of the population, helping policymakers identify existing workforce capacities and future needs. So if you're able to have, the demographics of your population, it can help you to plan. That's what this says, so that you can cover the skill gap. There's a gap indeed. Informing sectoral manpower needs. There we have detailed demographic analysis can reveal trends such as aging population, youth bodies, and migration patterns, all of which influence labor market dynamics across various sectors. So there's need for more work so that you can understand the patterns of your population, labor force, and so that you can plan. Understanding these trends helps in planning for sectors likely to experience growth, such as healthcare and technology, as well as those likely to decline. A word on that. If you know the amount of healthcare givers that have left our country in the last 5 years, and the number of technocrats, particularly in the digital field, then you see that, I don't know if you have been to the bank before and you're having issues with a lot of network issues, and there are so many people there trying to resolve one thing or the other. The skilled people have left. So if I were to advise, one way to do that, like I said, is to organize training and retraining for people so that they can be up to date. Skill gap analysis. Identifying gaps between the skills available within the workforce and those demanded by employers is essential for effective manpower planning. If you have been involved in interviewing people, I know Honey interviews people, you will be disappointed at the capacity that graduates bring to the table. So if you are well read and you are focused, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to get the job, because there are only few people who will be able to pass those interviews, especially in the our field of statistics. Assessment of current skills versus market demands, still the same thing. Regular assessment can help identify skill shortages and surpluses, allowing for timely adjustment in education and training program. So when you do assessment regularly, you can always adjust your program. Such analysis support development of targeted initiatives that address specific sectorial needs, enhancing job readiness among new entrants to the labor force. So if you keep tweaking your programs, your training programs, you'll find out that at the end of the day, people who pass through your organizations are better prepared, whether as a school or as maybe an industry. Strategies for aligning educational and training programs. So these strategies are very helpful. I'm only going to touch on the major high points. Okay, so the strategies include integration with industry. There needs to be a collaborative work between partnership between educational institutions and the industries. Such collaborations are important. Things like internship, apprenticeship, and that, going back to our lab. If you go to the LISA lab, you find out that many of the students that are from there are not from the University of Ibadan. And sometimes you go there and you find out that's their first time of having opportunity to use their laptop to do productive things. So that's important. Lifelong learning and continuing education. Thanks to COVID. COVID was a bad thing, but in the long run, it has helped us to be able to get access to a lot of online platforms. Okay, so we are saying that everybody should keep learning. You have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Very important. Encouraging lifelong learning helps the workforce. There were times in this country when people are taken abroad to go and be trained. Okay, so encourage that. Government and businesses can support continuing education through subsidies, online courses. So what are we saying? And make sure that your workforce is always being, improved by giving the opportunity to do things like online courses. Policy initiatives and incentives. Developing policies that incentivize businesses to invest in employee training can enhance skill levels with the existing workforce. The same thing again, but here he's speaking to the government, that the government should put policies in place and also provide scholarships, not loans, because if you give them loans, they have to look for how to pay. But where would they even get it from after graduation? That's a different conversation. Task incentives and direct funding. Those are the kind of things that, should come from the government or leaders of organizations. So yeah, policy implication and challenges. This is not going to be difficult for us because I think that's what we have said all along. Oh, maybe there are people who want to make comments. Any comment, please? Any comments? Yoni, can I go on? We are gradually rounding off, so and we are okay. Yeah. Any comments? I'm now alone.
You are not alone, sir.
Okay, great. So what we did was we engaged ourselves in so much conversation so that the latter parts of the notes will be things that you enjoy. When you start reading them, you will see that we have embarked on a lot of those discussions. So what are the policy implications and what are the challenges? The implications for social and economic policies are: one, influence of projection on policy. When we understand our population, we project on the labor force, it can shape a wide range of social and economic policies. So no government will come and put up a policy without understanding the dynamics. So we suffer in this country and in some of countries that are like ours because we have not done the proper thing before we come up with policies. So moving forward, we expect government to look at things like having a good database, because that's the starting point. It's a shame for us not to have had a population census for only God knows how many years. So understanding these influences helps policymakers allocate resources effectively and plan for future needs. Yes, we've said it, we've overflogged that issue. You don't know how many people are in your household, and you go and negotiate salary, and they tell you 100,000 naira, and you get home and your son says, that will only take care of the school fees for this term. Man, you're on your own. All right, so educational policies, healthcare policies, employment and economic development, social security and pension system. This pension system is more about the aging population. Okay, so there's a structure where you begin to prepare for when you get to this level. So these are some of the implications, but there are challenges, there are bottlenecks, administrative challenges, sometimes really man-made. But before we get to the challenges, let's just talk about this a bit. Impact of aging population. Aging population presents significant challenges for social welfare system and labor market because there's increased demand for age-related service and healthcare, coupled with a shrinking workforce, can strain public resources and social security funds. We've said so, that once you don't plan for this age, it will affect the entire system. Policymakers need to consider these factors in long-term financial planning and workforce development strategies. It's a shame when you hear that people don't get their pension, like you said. Challenges in projection and planning, yes. It's good to stay here like I have done throughout and complain about so many things. But who will fix it? It's not easy to fix, okay? So those of you who want to go to church and pray or mosque and pray, that could be one strategy. However, let's understand the problems before we start, thinking of intervention. Uncertainty and limitation of current models. What is used now, okay, as is limited. It says projections are inherently uncertain and depend on various assumptions about future demographic behaviors, including fertility, mortality, and migration rates. We had a small argument concerning whether there's an increase or a decrease. So we need to properly understand that dynamics. And all points back to having data. And the second point says limitation in data quality. It's not only for you to have data, it's for you to have data that is reliable, okay, that's consistent. Data that is, that says the situation. Because there is so much of data that does not, resonate what the reality is. And sometimes data that is very sensitive is not made available, not because they are trying to protect or whatever, but for some very, how do you say it now? For some very ridiculous reasons. That's for want of a word that is not going to sound bad. So the point here is that everybody has to be involved. Everybody has to be involved. It's not an easy task, and it's not a task that will be fixed overnight. Okay, so it says impacts of unexpected demographic changes. Yes. Okay, so here there could be migration crisis. We've talked about that. Okay, sudden large-scale migration due to conflict, economic crisis, or environmental disaster can disrupt demographic trends, affecting everything from housing to job markets. These changes require rapid adjustment in policy and resource allocation to accommodate new population groups. Then pandemics, example, COVID-19. So this is where we are supposed to get to. Okay, what is left is the interactive discussion and group activity. So you are going to look at this group activity, and then maybe we can turn this to an assignment too. Answer the questions, even though you have been given sample answers. Prof has been magnanimous enough. And then there's the multiple choice question, which our dear Antione has, I think she has sent it. I don't know whether the deadline is passed. As we conclude the class, I want to go back and do something here. I would like to say, I don't know why my screen is like this. Osareme. Osareme.
Sir.
Get three people. Okay?
Okay, sir.
And then you do that assignment together. You submit it. Group assignment. Blessing.
Sir.
Blessing.
Okay, sir.
Blessing.
Sir.
Get three people.
Yes, sir.
And you do that.
Yes.
You do that activity together, and then you submit. Only will tell us when to submit.
Okay.
Madam Ogbeni. Ogbeni.
Yes, sir. I'm with you, sir.
Also get 3 people, and then you will do the activity with them. So there are 3 groups now. The group leaders are Osarime, Blessing, and Ogbeni.
Okay,
Sister
yes, sir.
Annie, please, can you help us conclude the lectures by telling us the modalities for submitting this assignment and how long you want to give them? Over to you. Auntie Annie.
Go inside.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, go on, ma.
I think we'd have to discuss with Prof.
Okay.
Then, if he approves, we are going to create an assignment page for them to send the assignment.
Good. Can you stop sharing? Can you stop sharing? Stop recording.
Okay.
Okay, so Anthony, so are we saying that you are going to discuss with Prof and